Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report.
All right. All up here at False Live Oak Point, we've had some systems, frontal systems have been pushing through here. It's changed water temperature, air temperature, all the above, pushed water out of here, so our water levels have really dropped out. So one of the things technique-wise that you can do is, whether it's this particular location, this is just one of the areas that we have been fishing in and have done pretty well right here along the edge of the ditch or the ICW, is get here on the edge of that deeper water, especially when you got super low tides, is get on the edge of the ditch and just work. Get on your trolling motor. It's going to be a little difficult to wade. You can do it. I wouldn't really suggest you do it because there is a lot of barge traffic, so you have to deal with the amount of water that's coming and going. There's little tsunamis when they come through there, so it really pushes a lot of water in and sucks a lot of water out. So it's something that kind of a safety thing that you really need to be aware of if you're going to do that. You can do it, but if you got a trolling motor on your boat, get on this thing right here, the ICW, anywhere up and down it. This is just one of the areas that I'm pointing out to you. So you can take this, get on the edge of that. When you're working a little bit deeper water, especially this time of year when it's a little bit chillier, it's not a bad idea to put just move up to an 1/8 ounce jig head when you're working 6, 7, 8 foot of water, especially early, until you're giving that water a little time to warm up. You can get on your trolling motor nice and slow, just work it right down the edge, pick the edges of that with those baits, whether you're down south or whatever flavor that you want to throw, company-wise, it doesn't matter. But you're working the edge, you're working drops. You got mud all up and down the ICW, especially up in this area. And when you're going up and down there, just take that and throw it up on the shallow water and see if you got anything working up there. And then let it just kind of bounce down the edge. The magic grass, chicken of the sea, Texas roach, all those, the darker flavors have been really good. Wouldn't try to suggest you throwing any of your corkies in here because it's going to be a little bit too difficult to work that while you're off the boat. That's a better wading bait than it is fishing bait from the boat. But throw your plastics, throw them in that deeper water, especially when it's cold and when our tides are super low. Because when you do that, those fish have a tendency to want to come off the flat edges and get in just a little bit deeper water and feel a little bit more comfortable. So if you're not working this area, you can't find anything, continue to move down, up down Sun Bay, all the way down into this area here. Get up here in the Sun Bay and do the same type of thing right down the ICW because it gets really skinny up there in sundown. And those fish will come off of that flat. They'll push off an ICW on either side. Just kind of let the wind dictate to you which way you're going to work it, protected side, shoreline, whatever. And continue to pick these edges. Look for some bait. Maybe you'll find some ospreys working. You'll find some brown pelicans working the edges of this. Some stuff that you need to look for. When you do, just take your time working it. You'll locate some trout maybe hanging off the edge of this. Some black drum have been hanging off the edge of this. And a scattered redfish or two from time to time. Up here on Shell Point, Turtle Pen area, all back in this whole little back lake area. You can work this whole back shoreline. Now, the one thing here that you want to remember when you're working all these areas back in here, it's kind of soft in some of these areas. It's very wadeable. It's not a problem whatsoever. Just make sure you take into consideration that some of these areas are going to be a little bit soft, but not terribly unmanageable. With that said, you got some back lake mouths that come off some of these little lakes that dump out in here into this little cove area. Get up here, either off the points, this area here toward the back lakes, that's back here on the back side of this little point right here as you're heading into the turtle pen area. Take your time. This is a great location where you need to work either your Paul Brown Original, your Fat Boy, your Sinker, any of those that you really like. You've got some nice clump shell that's back in this area. You've got some decent mud that's back in this area. You've got some deeper guts that go back into some of these back lake mouths. Again, duck season's been over for a little bit, so you don't have to worry about that aspect of anything. So when you get up in here, it can be protected for you depending on which way that you need to work it as your wind. And when that water really starts dropping out and it starts flowing back in, these back lake areas become really a target point for you. There's been a decent amount of bait that's been working in some of these. Again, remember, this time of year we don't have as much bait working in our system. So When you see just a little bit of bait, whether it be 1, 2 pieces of mullet that flip, or even if you don't see that and you see an osprey that's hovering over in a particular area, those are great location things for you to let you know that there's bait working in the area. Whether you see it or not, those birds will see it because they've got such a vantage point to see them from up there. So that's just another good indicator for you to let you know that you have bait working area. And when you do, depending on what we've got, and so we're transitioning toward a full moon. So again, downsize, profile size your bait to start your day out. You got to have a little plan there to put that in place. And once you do, then it'll just kind of let you know. The fish will dictate to you if they want something just a little bit bigger. You know, your soft dines are good in this kind of area here, so you can really work those. Again, the fat boys and the originals, those have been really good working in this area here. The burner shad, another thing. The marker 54 jerk shrimp has been good. That and the mullet run. Those are all little things, especially the mullet run, especially with the scarcity of the bait. That mullet run, man, it really blends good with that water in there, and they see that, and it's been really a good product to throw. If you don't have one, you might want to pick some up. They've been good, and they'll continue to be good, especially this time of year. But continue to work these areas here. Look for those signs in those areas. There's been some nice redfish that's been caught back in this area. Trout, not too much. It's been a little scattered here and there. They've been undersized, but the redfish have been good. Up here behind Dunham, all this area back in here, you got a nice gut. You got some nice shell bars that are hanging out there. You got a bunch of clump shell that's out in this area here. Work these areas around the edge off the deeper points here. Again, this has been another great location to throw your Paul Brown originals, the sinkers, fat boys, all the above. Again, the down south in the regular model and burner shad have been productive in this particular area. Again, with our transitioning toward a full moon, we'll be in a full moon here in the next 2 to 3 days. So that's going to be one of the things that you really want to throw is that smaller profile bait. So your soft dines would be another great thing to throw profile-wise. Again, start with a small bait early if you're going to be on the water early, whether it be late, early, whatever. Target time frames during the next, 8 to 10 days that you really going to do is your early morning when you have that moon starting to set, and then late evening when the moon's starting to rise. Those the minor rising and the minor setting are going to be your really target areas. You can catch fish during the middle of the day when you have the major over and the major under, but man, it's going to be really difficult during those time frames. So really target your areas in your time frame early morning till about mid-morning, maybe 11, and then try to get back on the water if you can, if you're able to. Maybe probably around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and fish it till dark, or maybe an hour past dark when that moon's really good and up in the air. But that said, all these areas in here, deeper edge, deeper water, make sure when you're working this area here, this is the old ICW over here behind Dunham, and there are sections of it. If you've ever run it and just paid attention to your depth finder, it can get to 16, 17, 18 foot deep, so you want to make sure that you're not getting too close to that edge because you wouldn't want to slide off in there because it's a very possibility that possibly could happen. It's nice soft mud back in here. Work the shell bed that's off of that edge and that point. There's more clump shell back in here, the little cove that's back this way. There's deeper edges that are off in and around all that shell. Great locations for you to really pepper and work. Take your time with it. That's the biggest thing, especially right now. Take your time with it. Water's a little chillier. Fish are not going to move nearly and be nearly as active as what they would be if it's a little bit warmer. So don't get too frustrated with an area if you're not catching fish all the time. Just be consistent. That's the big thing. Just be consistent with it and work it and really take your time working it, peppering it. And that way you can really cover water with your baits, and it'll give you more opportunity to catch fish, especially when they're not as active, and then you can locate much better that way.
Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Larry Bell.